What is the difference between these two portraits? If you had to boil it down to just one thing, what would set the portrait on the right apart from the portrait on the left? Now, I really want you to think about what your answer would be to this question. So while you're thinking about that and coming up with an answer, I want to thank everyone for submitting their art, just being a part of this. For those of you who were not selected this time around, you can always just message me privately and we can have a personal critique that way, which I'd be happy to do for you. And as always, I will be giving this critique through the lens of the Evolve Artist method. So let's get to it. So, have you thought of an answer yet? If you have not thought of an answer, pause this video. I want you to really consider this. If you can't think for yourself, then you will not be able to make original artwork that is uniquely your own. Now, before I give you the answer, let's talk about what it's not. So it's not more realistic. Not that it isn't more realistic, but simply that we want to go one step deeper. And the answer is also not details. I didn't put a single detail into the portrait on the right. Actually, more details were put into the portrait on the left. And what I was doing was simply doing things on top of what was already there. So it's not details. It's also not more care. Okay, so don't get misconstrued there. I actually just really sloppily put stuff down onto the portrait on the right to make it what it is. And there are some things in there that right now I kind of want to take out because I just quickly and sloppily threw it down. And if I was going to spend much more time on this, then I would make it, there would be more care and it would be more refined. So it's not more care than the portrait on the left by any means. So what is the answer then? When you boil it all the way down, the difference between these two portraits is light and shadow. Having a true grasp, an understanding of how light and shadow affects everything that it interacts with and how it can create the impression of 3 dimensions even on a 2-dimensional surface. Before going any further, let's take a moment to appreciate what Kelly has done in this portrait. You can see that she has been conscious of her values, especially in the skin tones, where you can see the lighter values in the forehead and the cheeks and the nose and the lips. And she also captured a really lovely expression. And you really can never stress that enough in portraiture. People are often looking to see, how are they being seen? And when you capture an expression that is truly gentle and kind like this one, then it really sends a message of love and appreciation for the person that you're painting or drawing. So the first thing that I did was figure out what is light and what is shadow. Now, when I looked at the reference, I found that this was actually not immediately clear to me, which told me that there could be multiple sources of light, lots of ambient light bouncing around. So I did take the time to find where the sources of light are coming from so that I could more easily figure out what is light and what is shadow. It's not super important that we know exactly where the light sources are, but it's just important that we know what is light and what is shadow, and then treating those two things as completely different from each other. Notice how drastically his face changes, and I haven't done anything to the drawing or the proportions or anything like that. I've kept everything just as it is and have only used values here to make a clear distinction between light and shadow. You can see that the structure, the form of the face is emerging as I'm simply making anything that's a shadow darker than anything that is a light. I also want you to notice how different the shadows are from the lights, not only in terms of value, but also color. Shadows are always going to be relatively gray compared to the lights. Now that I have my shadows in, I'm noticing that my lights are a little bit washed out. They could be more colorful, they could be a little bit darker in value. So I'm going to go ahead and give the lights more color, and you're going to see how the value relationships are going to match up once again. Now that my lights are a little bit darker, I have room in my values to be able to create highlights. And this is going to put a little bit more information in our lights in the face, and this is often misconstrued as being details when in reality it's just a slightly brighter value on top of the light. It's really overarching stuff. It's nothing specific here, just these glazes basically that are going on top of the portrait underneath. And you can see, just flipping this the other way around, it's really not a lot, but it's just keeping to the fundamentals. You can see all of my shadows are gray, and then things that are in the lights, you can see there has a little bit more color in them as I'm working around on these things. So keeping that structure in place, that understanding of light and shadow is permeating throughout every single mark that I make in bringing out this portrait. Now, light also plays a role in the environment that the object is in. So as I drop in this blue background, I'm also going to need to put in some blue into receding planes where that background would be reflecting some blue off of those receding planes and then entering our own eyeballs. So it's going to go on this, like the sides of his face, it's going to go into some of the shadows on his shirt, things like that. So now he feels connected to the environment that he's in. And also while I'm at it, I'm going to add in some more richer color in the midtones, right where the light and the shadow meet. You'll find that color tends to be richest right in those areas. And so if I hit the cheeks and the forehead there, it's going to come out and going to give more life to the portrait. And whoopsie, I forgot to add some of the blue into the hair there, so that's going to help. So at this point, the only thing that's really barring me from bringing this to a photorealistic portrait is a lack of edges, sharp edges that bring this into focus, as well as some texture and details, minor adjustments to the proportions, and just sharpening up some edges, establishing some cast shadows a little bit more firmly. Again, bringing in some details, bringing in some focus, using edges. Things that are sharper will pull forward, things that are softer will pull back. There's a whole range of things that I could do just with edges that I really haven't touched in this portrait, but it just goes to show how strong values and color alone can bring a portrait forward. And it's really those three things: values, edges, and color, the fundamentals. And those things are predicated on an understanding of light and shadow, which is essential, absolutely essential if you want to not just copy, you don't want to copy a portrait, right, into a painting. You want to fully make a portrait your own and make it realistic and full of life in a way that uses a reference, a photograph like this, as a point of departure and truly brings out the best in this person that you're capturing. So Kelly, you've done a wonderful job. I can see that you're paying attention to your values and you're getting some of the light and shadow in place. I would just strongly encourage you to give it more prominence, more structure, the same way that you've treated the face. You can bring that over into the hair, into the shirt, and if this isn't finished yet, then keep going. Keep pushing this. There's a lot that you can do here just by thinking in terms of light and shadow. And you know what, actually, I'll send you a message so that we can continue to talk about this, and so I can maybe help give you advice and just point you in the right direction going forward in making more portraits. And thank you everyone for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts or questions in the comments below. And I'm also really curious, what was your answer to the beginning of this video? I'd love to hear that, and we can talk about that as well. Maybe there's a better answer than light and shadow. I'd love to have discussions about this kind of stuff, so let's talk, let's have conversations. So everyone can stay tuned for our next submission for the Open Art Critique number 5.